How you going, guys? Dean from Blog for the Blood God here, and I've been getting a lot of people commenting on my videos and asking me about how I made or where I bought my WarSlate. So basically today I'm going to do a little bit of a tutorial showing you how to make your own, because it's actually a homemade WarSlate. So this is the one I'm talking about here. For those of you who have seen my videos and my battle reports, you might have seen it kicking around, but for those of you who haven't, I'll do a bit of a showcase, show you what it is, how it works, and then I'll get into a tutorial on how to make your own. Alrighty, so for those of you who haven't seen a lot of my videos and haven't seen a lot of my content, you're probably wondering what the fuck I'm talking about. What is a WarSlate? Well, it's a little concept that I came up with myself just to make the gaming experience just that little bit cleaner, tidier, and easier to manage. So what it is, it's a little case, and on the inside, you have all your gaming necessities. So you got sections for different colored dice, you got your scatter dice, you got objective markers, and then you've also got a section for maintaining your maelstrom cards, and little slots where you can slot them in. So that way during game, you can have all your stuff set up here, it's all clean and tidy, and if somebody wants to move their model there, you can just pick it up and slide it around, and it's all good. And also, if you're heading to a tournament or even just to a mate's house for games, you know, all you need to do is grab that and boom, you've got your tactical objective, you've got your objective markers, you've got your scatter dice, you've got your dice, everything's all there. So it's a really nice, simple little device that I developed a few years back with help from people on my page. People commented and helped me refine this design, and basically this is what I use today. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how to build your own step by step. So without further ado, let's get into a short video showing you guys the materials needed. Alrighty guys, so here are the essential tools required to build your own battle slate. So your first thing, and this is the core of it, is an iPad case or any old tablet case. Now, the size that you choose is entirely up to you. If you want to go big and put templates in there as well, you can. If you want to go small and just carry dice, you can just use a phone case. Or if you want to include your tactical objectives, you need a tablet size. 100% up to you. Depends on what you want to include in your slate. So for this example, I'm just going to go with an iPad mini. The other thing you're going to need is a bunch of super glue. I just use cheap, nasty super glue. I don't necessarily think it's required to have anything special. The other thing you need is a nice sharp blade and a yoga mat. So the yoga mat, you want to make sure you get it in the thickness of your dice. That's the important part. Now, unfortunately for me, I wanted a blue mat, and the only blue mats that I could find were thinner than my dice, so I'm going to double up the foam. But with my previous one, I wanted black, and I was lucky enough to find a black yoga mat that was the right thickness of foam. You can get the foam in multiple sources. I find the yoga mat's the cheapest way to do it because you get tons of foam and it's really cheap. Whereas you could go to a specialist foam store, and that way you can select the exact foam that you want. Either way, I recommend using EVA foam, just because it's springy enough that it can hold the dice tight enough that it'll hold them and you can hold the thing upside down and they won't fall out. But it's also loose enough that you can put your fingers in between the foam and the dice and pull them out. So I highly recommend EVA foam, which is the same foam they use for like exercise mats, that false flooring like fatigue mats. All of that sort of stuff is fine. But for this example, I'm going to be using a yoga mat. And yeah, so that's the essential bits and pieces. Alrighty, so there's quite a few stages to this. The first one that you're going to want to do is take your iPad case, pull her out of its packaging, open her up. That's the little packing foam that it comes with. Get rid of that, you don't need it. And then you've got this little piece of plastic here. Now you've got two options. You can leave that in and cut your foam insert to go on the inside of the plastic, or you can pull it out. For my purposes, I'm going to pull it out. So you just want to rip it off. Don't have to worry too much about being neat because we're going to glue all that together anyway. So fuck that off over into the corner. And now we've just got a nice leather look piece of cover, I guess. So that's your first step. Alrighty, second step, nice and simple. Let's bust open the yoga mat. So, grab her out of it. I'll just drop my knife, classic me. Bust it out of its packaging. Lay it down on your table. Right. Now, the first thing I recommend doing is simply cutting off a manageable piece. Because when you've got it all in a big roll like this, it's a real pain in the ass to work with. So I'm just going to grab it and I'm just going to slice it and cut off a nice little manageable square. So we've now got something to work with. And now, it's just a matter of cutting a piece so that it covers your one side of your tablet case. So I'm just going to do this real easy and dodgy because that's how I roll. And I'm just going to put it on there and I'm going to cut around the case. Now the smart thing to do here would be to get yourself a pencil or a texter and trace around it and then cut if you want to be a perfectionist. So we cut off our little section of foam, but like I said, that foam is only going to be half the depth or the thickness of my dice. So I'm going to double it up. So to double it up, I'm just going to go line it up and then slice. Now, the other piece of advice I have for this is cut bigger than the section that you need, because that way, if you need to, you can always trim it back. Whereas if you've cut it too small, you're going to have to go back to your foam mat and cut it again, which is not a huge issue if you have bought an entire yoga mat to make one little case. But if you're trying to, if you've gone and bought custom foam, the right width and the right size and the right color, then you don't want to fuck it up. So that's my other piece of advice. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these two pieces together. So I'll turn the camera off, I'll glue them together, and then we'll get into the next step. So the next step that you want to do once you've cut your foam is basically put it all together and lay out how you want your sections to be cut. So I always advise, if you're going to have tactical objective cards in there, make sure you have 2 spots. There's 2 reasons for that. One, a deck is twice as tall as the dice, so you can't actually just have 1. So if you have 2, when transporting it, you split your deck in half and it'll fit and you'll be able to shut the lid and it'll be all good. And then when you're in a game, I pull them all out, put them in one pile, give it a good shuffle, and then that's your draw deck. And then that's your discard pile. So that way you can keep your discard cards separated from your drawn cards. And then I'm going to, for this one, I'm going to have the slots up here, the horizontal slots that the cards will go in when they're an active objective. So that way you slot them in there and you know what objectives you've got, you know which ones you're drawing, and you know which ones you've discarded. Nice and simple. Clear for your opponents, so there's no shenanigans over which cards were yours and which weren't. And then basically I've got 2 sections here because it's always good to have 2 different coloured dice. I'm contemplating maybe going more white and less black because often you'll be like, tactical squad will be firing, 10 bolters and a single melter gun, So I'm thinking I might actually drop that back to maybe 1 or even 2 rows of black and a single one of white. But yeah, basically this is the creation stage. This is where you really figure out what you want and where. And then I've grabbed myself a pen, and for this section I am actually going to mark around them. The other idea what you can do here is mark around them but make it mirrored. because when you mark that, you don't want to be able to see that line that you've just done. So if you do it mirrored, then you can cut through on this side and then flip it. And when you flip the case, flip the foam, you'll have that clean edge on the other side. So yeah, without any further ado, I'm gonna make some final adjustments to my layout because I definitely think I want to drop some black and have a majority white. So I'll drop some of them, and then once I've got my final layout and I'm happy with it, I'm gonna mark it all out and get cutting. So I will be right back. Alrighty guys, there we have it. So I've sliced out the holes required to fit my dice in and my tactical cards in. Now, a piece of advice for when you're doing this is always cut the holes smaller than what you think you're going to need, because being that it's foam, it can stretch out when you put the dice in, and that's what you want. You want it to be a nice tight hole, whereas if you've made it even 1 millimeter too big, the dice will just fall out. Whereas if you make it nice and tight, it'll hold. And the other side to that is you can always make the hole bigger. If you've made it 3 millimeters too small and it's too tight, you can always trim it back. Whereas if you've made it too loose, well, nobody likes it too loose. So, yes, that pun was intended. So yeah, basically always go for as tight as possible. And so the next thing that I'm going to do is cut in the horizontal slits here. Now, the important thing to do there is remember that obviously you don't want your cards straight up like that. You want them on an angle so that you can read them on, the 45 degree that you view your table from. So when you're slicing it, get your blade and hold it on a 45 degree angle like that. So that way, so for example on here, instead of cutting it straight down like that, cut it on an angle like that, and that way when you slot the cards in, they'll slot in on the same angle that you have cut it on. So I'll hit the camera off, I'll cut those up, then once I've cut that, all I've got to do is glue it down. So there is an extra step that you can do if you have the right tools, which I'm going to do with this case, is I'm going to use my Dremel, and I'm going to grind it down a little bit. And the Dremel is really good at smoothing out some of these edges, which can make it look a lot better. And it's also good if you've made any of the holes too small, which I have done. I've made these ones, I need to grind them out a little bit. And then there's also one other trick you can do with the Dremel, which I'll show you in a moment. So before I glue it down, I'm going to go cut the slots in there. I'm going to Dremel it all so it's nice and smooth, and then I'll glue it down and show you guys the finished product. So I'll be back with you in a moment. And here we have the finished product. So there you have it, from start to finish, how to construct your own WarSlate. That's what I've been calling it. Call it whatever you will. So you can see I've got the angled cards in there. I've got a spot for each of my special dice. I've got plenty of room for white dice, plenty of room for black dice, double tactical cards. It's very easy to pop those out, fold her up, and boom. Okay, that shouldn't happen. Fantastic. That's just because I've overfilled this one and not that one. So when you're transporting it, obviously you'd have half a deck in there, half in there, and it should hold nice and tight. I did make a few mistakes on this one, which I'm going to highlight. Even though it's supposed to be a video to show you guys how to do it, I'm going to show you guys what I did wrong. And I'm also going to show you guys what I did with the Dremel, which sort of took this a little bit further. So you can see there's these little notches here. I put them in there because it makes it easier to, once you've slotted your cards in, you slot your cards in, they're held nice and firm on each end by the foam, but it allows you to get your finger in underneath, which that makes picking up the cards a lot easier, especially when you want to pull the whole deck out so that you can shuffle it. It's a lot easier. The other thing that I did with the Dremel, which I'm not sure if it'll come up well on the video, was I used it to bevel the edges here, which didn't work out quite the way I wanted. I think I need a finer gradient on my a finer grade on my grinder, but it looked a lot better in the original. because this has got a textured foam, which I didn't realize it was textured when I bought it. I thought it was going to be textured on one side and smooth on the other, but it's actually textured on both. Whereas this one, as you can see, was smooth. So that looked really, really nice. And the bevel on the smooth worked really, really well, whereas this foam was less than ideal. So with that in mind, this was a exercise mat, whereas that's a yoga mat. So the exercise mat's the quite thick stuff, made out of the same material, but I think being thicker and also being non-textured worked a lot better than the thinner stuff. Plus you don't have that pain in the ass of having to glue two sheets together to get the desired thickness. So with that being said, everything that I've shown you still applies, and that's still the best way to go about doing it, but I highly recommend using the thicker EVA foam, which you get from an exercise mat, because that way it's going to look a lot nicer, and it's also going to bevel nicer, and it's just better in every way. So yeah, that's pretty much it. The only other mistake that I made, which is nice and easy to hide, but it's worth pointing out, is that like most tablet cases, this one has a spot for the camera in the case, which I didn't really account for when I laid it out. So what you'd want to do when you're doing your layout is factor in that hole and make sure that that hole falls underneath some of the foam. So I probably should have put that corner, should have been down here, so that that hole would be covered up. Alternatively, you can cover it up with something, but this is my sort of 5-minute job. And the reason I've chosen white is because I wanted white, blue, and gold, because it's for my World Eaters Heresy era army. And also I'm going to paint some wicked freehand on the front of that. But yeah, so that's basically how you go about doing it. So I hope that was interesting for you guys. And yeah, if you make one, I would love to see pictures or comments below. And as always, please like and subscribe and all of that good shit. If you haven't seen my Facebook page, head over to there. Just go into Facebook and search for Blog for the Blood God, because I do a lot of other content on there. The YouTube channel has a lot of these tutorials and battle reports and stuff, but on my Facebook page, that's where I do tournament reports, work in progress updates, you know, all of that sort of stuff. There's also a bunch of hilarious memes and basically any 40k content that you could possibly want. You can find it on my Facebook page. So, as always, thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you guys next time.
War for the Blood God.